joining in to our live session today here on YouTube. Oh, let me see what happened here. Give me 1 second. All right, so hopefully you guys can see the screen here. All right, and so just checking in with everyone. Thanks for everyone joining in today. Hope everyone is staying safe and doing okay. So today's session, we're gonna, focus on user questions. I see some questions already coming through the chat, which is good. So we'll be taking a look at those throughout the session. I do also have some topics that I think would be good to cover. Things that people could be doing in times where you have some downtime. Maybe the orders aren't necessarily coming in right now, but there's a lot you can do with your DecoNetwork system to take the most advantage of it and really put it to full use right now. So let's take a look at some of these questions. All right, so we have Linda writing in a few questions, and she's asking about um, the region selections when you're creating an order in the Business Hub or adding a customer in the Business Hub. She's asking, is it possible to set US as the default country and maybe even set a default state? Um, it's not possible that currently those drop downs populate based on where you can ship to. So if you have, for example, only a domestic shipping method, that field would only populate with your country that you're operating in. If you have an international shipping method, it'll populate with all countries. The state field just populates based on the selected country. So, Linda, I would say that's something that you could certainly submit as an improvement request into the ideas section for us to consider it in the future. Let's take a look at some of these other questions. All right, so also from Linda, um, when adding a design to a customer account, okay, so she's uploading designs into a customer account and she's wondering, is it possible essentially to replace an existing design rather than add a new one each time that you're uploading? I don't think it's possible to replace a design, but it is possible to delete an existing design. So you can delete an existing design, and then once you go to upload let's say it's an updated graphic. Once you go to upload the updated graphic, you'll see only that one. So it's not possible to replace, but you can add new and then remove the old. All right, continuing on with Linda's questions here. When adding embroidered decoration to a garment, when setting up an order, why doesn't it load the designs that are already there instead of having to upload one? Um, so if you're creating an order and you've selected a customer account, the system will pull in from the designs that are already saved to that customer's account. I guess the key there is selecting the right customer account first so that the system knows which designs to pull up. Um, the the other thing that you may consider is designs are tied to a process. So a customer may have some designs related to screen printing, which may not show when you go to add a design for embroidery. So those two are the things that you would want to look at. But yeah, the system should be pulling in graphics already associated with a customer account as long as you've already selected that customer in the order. All right, and the last question here related to designs on a customer account is there any way to sort those designs? There isn't. Yeah, those are going to be, just like you found, those are sorted by date added into the customer account. All right, so let's see. Let's jump to the next question here. This one's coming from More Than TZ, writing in from Ontario, Canada. So in his case, they're doing more than just apparel, and they're trying to set up wide format printing. So the question is, how can we set up an option for customers to toggle between portrait and landscape? Okay, we can take a look at an example there. So there's no toggle necessarily between portrait and landscape, but the orientation of the print area is going to be determined by the way you set up the product. Um, so decoration in DecoNetwork is based around the product. And if you're doing something like white format, from what I know about white format, you can essentially do any length of print, but in terms of DecoNetwork, you'll have to have some fixed sizes, right? So let's say you're using white format to print some banners or some signs, things like that. You may have some fixed sizes of banners that you offer, some fixed sizes um, of signs, and so you would set those up as products in the admin area. We do have a video already on how to create these kind of flat products. I would consider them things like business cards, invitations, anything that's you could represent just as a flat rectangle essentially. Um, but we can do a quick walkthrough of that. So that would be considered a custom product. So here in your admin section, you would jump into the product section. You would choose add product, add custom product. First step would be to supply a product group to assign that into. For now, I'm just going to choose apparel, but you could go ahead and create a custom product group for that purpose. So you can give the product name and a product code. Okay, and so from here you can choose how you want the images to be supplied for the product. And you can do um, a variety of different options, but in the case of a sign, you would do most likely single image for all colors. The system will then prompt you to upload the image. And for these flat products like signs, like banners, what you're essentially going to do is um, you're going to supply an image which is the represents the aspect ratio of that sign. Let's say it's a 4:3 sign. So you would create a 4:3 rectangle in your design application, Photoshop, or whatever the case might be. Um, and that will allow you to kind of represent that in the DecoNetwork system. A lot of the time, people will at least leave a black border around that rectangle, so so the consumer knows where the bounds of that product are, and they know where they can decorate. So I don't have that image prepared, but what we can do is actually go back here and just use one of the examples from the DecoNetwork templates. So we could use something like this mouse mat. But you could imagine, this being a specific size or aspect ratio for a sign or banner that you're using. And for most of these products, the color is going to be white, right? It's just a white base that is then printed on. And so what you could end up doing, I guess getting back to the question of portrait versus landscape, you could set up multiple views on that sign, right? So this might be a 4x3 sign, and you might have a view which is landscape, and then you might have a secondary view which is portrait, right? So it would be that same size. So in this case, I'm using the same image, but you could, again, have one which is kind of designed landscape, one that's designed portrait. It's the same size, 4x3, and you can assign a print location to each of those views. This way, when the customer's in the designer, they can choose which view they want to decorate on based on the orientation that they want for that product or for that purchase. All right, so hopefully that helps out with those wide format prints. All right, next up, we're going to take a question from the T-Spot. So they're asking about stock design management. And specifically the ability for the consumer shopping through the website to browse and differentiate between editable templates and clip art, as well as differentiate between the available decoration process on the designs page. Let's take a look. So let's jump into the website pages editor. We're going to go into websites. We'll take a look at my main site here and jump into edit website pages. Okay, so if you take a look at the designs page, let's see what kind of options we have here. I know there's a sort option that you can enable here at the top. The other thing you can do, you can drop in a variety of widgets onto the page. One of those that you could drop in would be the design categories widget if you don't already have that. And you could drop this in maybe on a side column. So let me turn on that side column by going into my row settings. And in this case, I'll add a fixed width column to the left-hand side. So now I've got this extra column here on the left. And I'm going to drop my categories widget right into that section. And let me go ahead and save this change so that page is on and refresh here. We should get a list of categories now going down the left-hand side. So this is the first way you can go about making design organization a little bit easier for your customer, is enabling some kind of display of the categories. Categories can be managed both on the stock design front as well as the store design front. So if we jump into both of those sections, stock designs are your global designs available across all the stores. And then you have store designs limited to just that store where they were uploaded. One thing to note here, as far as designs from the DecoNetwork collections, those you don't have the ability to sort individually. Those already come pre-sorted into an assigned category. But what you do have access to do is move around those already defined categories. So let's say we wanted to add a category here for schools. right? So I've got sports, which is where DecoNetwork has filed these designs into from the sports collections. Um, and let's say I want baseball also under schools, this new schools category that I've created. You can drag that baseball category, drop it onto schools, and then you'll be presented with this pop-up, which asks you, do you want to move the category or do you want to create a link to that category under school? So here I could say link, and now essentially I'm showing baseball under both sections. So I have baseball under schools and I have baseball under sports. So it gives me that flexibility to kind of list those design templates across multiple top level categories. And then as far as store designs, you'll have a lot more flexibility because these will be designs that you've uploaded yourself. And so you can come in and really set what you want that categorization to be. And again, that categorization will be reflected here on the design category widget. You can also determine which types of designs you want the page to show, whether maybe you only want to show store designs or you only want to show stock designs. You can control that. Um, it doesn't look like we have any options to differentiate between an editable template and clip art. And I think the the tricky part in that comes so we do, for example, already classify the type of image. So, these editable templates that we provide, those are classed as DecoNetwork templates. Any vector graphic that you've uploaded would be classed as just a vector. Embroidery as embroidery. So we do, know the types of images that you have in your system. But even within the DecoNetwork template umbrella, you could still have clip art, depending on how that was set up in the template builder. But I think that's definitely something that we can kind of come back to. I know on previous iterations of the website system, we did have some way to filter between templates and clip art. So it's good that you bring that up, and we can definitely take that back and kind of review, see if we can do something else there. But for now, you have the options to categorize and look at adding those category listing widgets onto the page. All right, next question coming up from Printed Stitches, asking about the new barcode feature. Can we use barcodes on a Surface Pro using a barcode app? I haven't tried with the Surface Pro, but I have tried with the iPad, and it does work. So I would assume, the Surface Pro running Windows would work just as well, if not maybe even easier than the iPad. You have a lot more control, I think, on the Surface Pro. So yeah, it should work. The biggest thing is going to be making sure that whatever barcode scanner you've decided to use is compatible with that device. And I would say for the most part, you'll find that it should be. Um, if you're looking to connect a scanner like that with a mobile device, a tablet, and an iPad, I think the biggest thing is going to be making sure that it has Bluetooth connectivity, so that you don't require, some kind of a dongle to be attached to that device. I think that would be the best. Um, and just kind of background on how that barcode feature works. These barcode scanners essentially emulate a keyboard, so it's almost as if someone was going in and typing text. It's just being done through scanning of a barcode. Um, and so yeah, I think it should definitely work with the Surface Pro. I would say give it a try. Just make sure, like I said, your scanner has Bluetooth connectivity. All right, thanks for that question. Next up, we've got a couple questions from Alberto. He's asking about changing images on the main page. I'm assuming homepage of the website. So he's kind of been working on the website. He's already added a logo. Um, and he just wants to kind of go in and replace the images that are on the site. So yeah, we can take a brief look at that. There are also a lot of good guides on that already on the help system as far as how to use the different widgets in the website pages editor. But let's jump in and take a look at a couple examples. Um, so let's start with maybe a fresh theme. So I'm going to select the fashion theme and I'm going to reset my pages. So I'm going to be starting from scratch here, and we can take a look at how to customize this theme that we'll have started from scratch. Okay, so you mentioned you've already got your logo. I've just got a placeholder logo here. So let's assume you want to change images like this here. Um, I would say the first step before you start changing out images is determine what the content that you actually want on the page is. Um, for example, here on my homepage, I've got this section of product categories, which I don't really want. So I could go in and hover over that widget. Once I hover over the widget, I'll see the section tab. I can click the expand arrow to bring out the available options and choose the delete option to get rid of that widget. Um, for my homepage, I really just want one kind of call to action. So this one down here, I'm also going to get rid of. And I've got a section of latest products here. Um, for now, I'll leave that, but it might make sense to just kind of remove some of this noise. So I think some of this on the home page doesn't necessarily make sense, starting to show prices and colors. So what I could come in is configure that blank product listing widget, go into the design tab, and start making adjustments to that. Um, so for example, we can set it to not show prices. We can set it to not show colors. And that just kind of cleans things up a bit. Again, the homepage, you don't necessarily want to turn anyone off on the homepage. And I think talking about pricing, unless you're having some kind of a sale or your pricing is really competitive, doesn't necessarily make sense at that point, especially when you consider that a lot of the time for apparel, those lower prices come in with volume discounts, right? They're at a time when you're inputting your quantities and how much you actually are planning to order. Um, so for the homepage here, I'm just going to leave it nice and simple for my latest products. And then I have a section down here for the Instagram widget, which we won't bother to connect now. So I'll just go ahead and remove that. So I'm going to save this change. Again, so that's the first step, is just determining what content you actually want on the page. Then you can go in and maybe start swapping out some of these images. So for the sections that come with the theme, most likely those are set up as background images. And you can change those out by, again, hovering over that section, clicking the expand arrow to bring out the options. There's an option here to either remove the background image or replace it. You get a lot more options if you go into the settings of that widget. And in the settings pop-up, you click background properties. So here you'll have similar options to replace the image, remove it. You also have a lot more control as far as what you want the size of the image to be. And this is so you can determine, what you want your balance to be between quality and, page load speed. So let's say we wanted to swap this image. We can go to replace image. You have option to replace your own images. So I might want to, switch it out for this one. There's some stock images that DecoNetwork provides, which are kind of decoration industry related. But you mentioned uploading, images of your shop, so you could definitely upload those yourself. So for now, I'll just pick one of these shop images that we provide. Okay, and then you can set the image, how the image scales. There's a few options here. You've got cover, which ensures that no part of this container, this kind of box that we have on our site, is empty. So it makes sure that the image fills every part of that container. And then we've got contain, which is essentially says make sure that the image in its entirety always shows. And then kind of along with that, there's some tiling options, some repeating options. You could have the image tile, you could have it not tile, or you could have it tile only in a certain direction. For the most part, you're going to be using cover and contain between those two, depending on the option that you're using. And again, you have the option to set the image quality or size. So tiny, you're going to get really blurry. You can go all the way up to original size, which is going to look the best, but also load the slowest. All right, so you'll want to have some balance in between there. I think normally we have it, right down the middle. We use the large option by default. All right, so hopefully that helps, Alberto. And then follow-up question from Alberto about customers in the Business Hub. Is there a way to list them alphabetically? Yeah, it should be possible to list customers alphabetically. In the Business Hub, for most list views, you can click the column heading to sort the list by that column. And you can click it again to toggle between ascending and descending order. So here's, for example, my orders list, and I can just click the customer column to sort by descending customer name, or click it again to do ascending. You could also do, job name. Any of these columns that shows the name in blue is a link, and if you click on that link, it'll sort by that column. Great question on that. All right, so moving along here, we've got a question from Endless Ink Printing asking about team names for screen printing. So that's a good question. It does come up from time to time. The team name function in DecoNetwork currently is limited to processes like direct to garment, sublimation. We don't currently have a team name option for either screen printing or embroidery. Part of that is limitation on the embroidery side. On the screen print side, the option hasn't been developed for that process because, typically with a screen print, you have to do, screens, obviously. And if you think about, team names, each garment of a team jersey might have a different last name on the back, might have a different number. And if you're going to do that with screen printing, that might mean creating a screen for every name and number combination. So I know I think for the most part, in my experience, team names and numbers are usually done with vinyl, but I have seen examples of people doing numbers using, this kind of like modular number screen setup where you don't necessarily need to create a screen for every number combination. There's some kind of modular setup there where you can kind of swap out the numbers and then print just that number. I'm not sure if that something like that is done for names as well. I would think that would be pretty intricate to swap out the letter of each name. I'm not sure. I haven't seen something like that, but that's kind of the reasoning behind uh, the team name option not being available for screen printing. So what I would recommend is take a look at some of the other processes um, like DTG, like even the transfer process, which isn't necessarily vinyl. So transfer is meant more for pre-printed transfers, but a lot of people do reuse that for the purpose of vinyl, and that might be a good option for you to go in and consider enabling one of those processes if you don't already have it. or if you already are using it, utilizing that for the team names as well. Um, and you could certainly, mix and match processes. You might have screen print on the front, like a left chest screen print on the front, or a full body front with the team logo or whatever the case might be. And then on the back, you could do add team name using a different process like transfer or DTG. All right, so hopefully that helps out. Great question. Um, let's see. Let's take a look at. We've got a question here from Talia, who's asking about artwork approval. Okay, so she's asking about artwork approval, um, and specifically, in order to create an artwork approval job, um, you've got to upload some kind of image and then set that image as requiring a change. We can definitely take a look at that. So if we come into the orders list here, and let's take a look at adding a new order. Let's get a product in here. So let's swap this out. All right, so we've got a product here in the designer, and in order to create an artwork job, you've got to upload a graphic. And Talia's question is, I may not have the artwork at this stage when I'm quoting the customer. So what can I do to kind of work around that? There's a couple things you can do. You can add a placeholder onto the item, and this placeholder does allow you to enable the artwork job. It also enables you to, set your quoting. For example, for screen printing, you can still go in and say how many colors is that design going to be. Oops, let me do placeholder screen printing. So right now it's set as a one color, but you can go in and change how many colors that image is going to be. You can also add these placeholders through this decoration screen, and this is actually how I see most people do it. Is they'll come in here, they'll click into the decorations column, and they'll just start ticking on areas that are going to be decorated, right? So they don't necessarily have the artwork, but they know this item is going to have a screen printed front, and or this item is going to have an embroidered left chest, right? So you tick on these options, uh, and once you tick on the option, you can click into the price field, and again, that's where you can go in and say how many colors is this design. Even though I don't have artwork yet, I know that it's going to be a full body front and it's going to be a 3-color graphic. So by setting these attributes here, you're kind of telling the system beforehand how you want this to be priced out. And again, if you pull that into the designer, you have the option to check the design requires changes option, which is going to create an artwork job for you. The other thing I would mention, which I don't think this option is used too much, but the system does provide you a way to upload a placeholder image. So the one that we're seeing here in the Business Hub, that's kind of the default placeholder image, but you can upload your own. The other thing that you can do, which I've seen people do, is upload. So they don't necessarily set it as a placeholder image here. They just have an image locally on their system that they upload. So when they go to add customer design, they upload that placeholder image. And that's another alternative as well. So hopefully that helps for those artwork jobs, Tilia. Follow-up question as far as ordering transfers. I think pre-printed transfers is what she's asking about. Is there a way to keep inventory of those transfers and indicate when you might need to reorder? There isn't currently, and I've actually never heard that brought up before, so it's good that you're bringing that up. We do have the transfers process, which has that intent of being used for pre-printed transfers. We have the ability to set a price on those pre-printed transfers, um, but we don't have the ability to track inventory on them. So that's something definitely for future consideration. If you have the time, I would suggest to submit that into the ideas page, so we can get other DecoNetwork users voicing their support. We can kind of get a better idea of what kind of demand there is for that functionality. And that definitely helps when taking those feature requests into consideration and figuring out what we're going to work on next. Thanks for those questions. All right, thanks Victor for the shout out. Victor in the chat. All right, next up we've got a question from Andrew. Andrew James. Question about embroidery digitizing fee. How do you turn the digitizing fee on in the designer when customers are submitting their own embroidery order? Okay, yeah, let's take a look. So the digitizing fee can be configured in your admin area under decoration processes. From there, you'll want to click the embroidery section and jump into the artwork fee page. So here under artwork fee, you have the ability to um, enable this automatically create digitizing job option, which is the digitizing fee. You can set a price for that fee. Normally it's a fixed price unless you enable this per square inch option. And then the price that you set here would be per square inch of the uploaded graphic. Um, so really all you need to do is enable the option here. As far as the system applying that on the front end, when a customer is uploading their own artwork, the system will do that automatically. Um, so it'll know that the customer is uploading a graphic that isn't already digitized, and it'll go ahead and apply that digitizing fee to it. So let me see if I can just kind of show an example here. Um, let's see. All right, so here's an example where you would have that graphic placed. The system knows that this is not already digitized. Now my digitizing fee is not set necessarily accurately. But you can see here the charge for that digitizing fee. It does a size calculation, a square inch size calculation, and a stitch estimate, which isn't, it's not always accurate. All it can look at is the size of the graphic, and then it uses your stitches per square inch setting to determine that estimate. But it's definitely a good starting point. Uh, so that's the option there for digitizing fees. All right, thanks everyone for all the questions. Glad to be helping everyone out and answering these questions so you guys can get up and continue with that setup. All right, we have some more questions from Alberto. So he's asking about the proofs that DecoNetwork generates. Before joining DecoNetwork, they were creating their proofs, I think most likely in a graphics application, and they would type in the Pantone colors, and the size of the design. So he's asking how can he do the same in DecoNetwork. We can take a look at this. I think some of that information should already be present. Um, uh, Definitely the size information should already be there. Um, and I guess maybe the question is not necessarily to display the design information, but it sounds like you might want to be might want the option to not just show that information, but kind of override that information or specify exactly the dimensions that you want to display um, or the Pantone colors that you want to display. And if that's the case, we don't have that option to kind of override those and set those manually. But we can take a look at what we do have available. All right, so let me see if I have any artwork jobs here. Yeah, it looks like I do. So let's take a look at this one. And let's go ahead and let's download the artwork form. And let's take a look. So yeah, it does already list the dimensions. It doesn't look like it lists the colors. And I'm trying to think, I don't know that we store that information against the design necessarily. So this is something that we'll have to kind of take back to the team. It may be possible to add those colors in a future update. I know we, for example, list color information in the production worksheet. Um, we mention which colors are used in a graphic, but that's more associated with the order and how that specific design was analyzed and then matched to color palettes in your system. Um, and I guess kind of that's the other part of it is if you wanted the colors not just to be listed as, red, green, blue, but actual list Pantone numbers, you would need to set that up as a palette in your DecoNetwork system. Um, you can configure custom palettes in the admin section under decoration processes. From there, you can jump into the specific process that you're going to be working on. Let's say screen printing, and then you can jump into color palettes. Um, for some of the processes like embroidery, we have a lot of the palettes from the thread manufacturers already in there. For Pantone, we don't have that option because Pantone is kind of a licensed product. But you do have the ability to import your own palette, um, or just add it manually through the admin interface. You can create a palette that way as well. Most people would want to import it just because of the number of colors in the Pantone system. Um, and the key of this process is going to be for you to find um, that list of colors in a way that you can kind of format it to work for the import. Um, I know in the past I looked at the Pantone software. So when you buy a Pantone book, it comes with the license to the Pantone software that you can install on your computer. That Pantone software has the ability to export book palettes. So, like the solid coded, you could export that from the Pantone software. Um, and it would need quite a bit of editing, that file that is exported from the Pantone software. But you could essentially get the necessary information from that export to generate an import file for your DecoNetwork system. All right, so that's something that you could definitely look into. And again, as long as you have that in your system and you've configured your screen print process to automatically track colors, which is going to do the color matching, where it identifies, this red is this color from my palettes. You need these two options on under designer settings for that to function. Then in your production worksheets, the system would start displaying which Pantone colors are used in that design. Um, and keep in mind, the other thing I guess I would mention is matching this way by identifying essentially the RGB values of a color may not necessarily be accurate to the actual Pantone color that the customer might want, for example. So you can always kind of override those colors at the time that you're creating the order. You can go in and say, I want this color slot to be, Pantone 324 or whatever the case is. So don't necessarily rely on the automated matching system. Definitely look at choosing the colors that you plan on using. And just to kind of close this up, I think again I'll take that back, to the team to see if that's possible to show it on the artwork approval, but it may not be just because, like I said, the the color information is actually tied more to the order, not necessarily to the artwork, because the order determines what is the final color used for a particular piece of artwork. All right, but thanks for the question. Let's see. We've got Eli from MDI Apparel in the chat. Hey, Eli, how you doing? Let's see. Next question up here. So another question from Alberto. This time about generating quotes, creating quotes in the Business Hub. Okay, so I think this question is about products. Um, so if I'm understanding the question right, he's adding product onto a quote, but running into the issue where the particular product that he's added does not have um, sleeve or like side views to decorate on a sleeve. Um, if that's the case, a lot of it depends on what kind of information we're able to get from the supplier. Do we have suitable images to generate a side view? Um, so there's a lot of things that could prevent us from being able to add those additional views. But the best way for you to kind of check on that is in your DecoNetwork admin area. You would go into the product section, configure the product that has those or is missing those views, and you can report an issue to our catalog team who works on these products. So here from the general tab, when you're configuring the product, you can click report a problem with this product. And so this will send a report to that teams. You could say missing views, missing colors, whatever the case is. Um, as far as kind of utilizing that, let's say you need this product and you need some side views. This particular product already has them, but let's say you ran into one that didn't. You could add your own views. So any catalog product, you have the ability to define your own views, add additional views, and you could either, if you're able to source the images yourself, you could upload those. You could also use some of the DecoNetwork templates and try to find something that would be suitable for that purpose. There should be some side views in here. Um, I know for sure there's some that are kind of not necessarily a product image, they're an illustration of a side view, and that certainly would be an option to look at. Maybe if an image isn't available, then just use an illustration of a side view of a garment. All right, so you can definitely add your own views if the product doesn't already have it. If you want the catalog team to kind of look at resolving that, you can do report a problem with this product. All right, let's see here. All right, so next up we've got, so Eli's kind of giving some feedback, I think to Talia, as far as that inventory question for the transfers. Um, he's mentioning you can add the transfer as a line item to the order, um, and input quantity and use that to track how many you have left. Um, yeah, I think that that could work. I suppose you would go back into the order and um, or maybe he's saying add it as a product. I'm not sure. Yeah, if you add it as a product, then obviously you could do inventory against it. Um, Otherwise, if you're just adding it, let's say as a free-form line item and inputting quantity that you would then go back and edit and lower, uh, I'm not sure that would work out. So yeah, I think maybe Eli's saying add it as a product into your system and then set inventory against the product. That might be a usable workaround. Thanks for sharing that, Eli. And then Alberto asking also not just about missing views, but also asking about processes that aren't available. Um, so if you run into a product where a specific process isn't available, there's a few reasons why that may be the case. Um, it could be due to the attributes of that product. So all of the products that come from the DecoNetwork catalog have different attributes assigned to them, like the color type of the item, the material makeup, the weave type, the finish, the stretchability, and all of these determine um, which processes this item is going to be suitable for, right? So, for example, something like DTG may not be suitable on items that have buttons, right? Where that button, that raised button, would create an issue for the print head going across the garment, or um, DTG is not going to be suitable for certain processes. Screen printing is not going to be suitable for finishes that are very rough, where the ink won't be able to really get onto the substrate evenly. Um, so we have these attributes assigned to every product, and then under each process, there's a section for Smart Select rules. DecoNetwork provides some defaults as far as screen printing, which types of attributes is it suitable for. But you can always come in here and adjust this. Um, and so if there's any additional, let's say here for screen printing, if there's any additional material types that I would want to screen print on, let's say um, rayon or nylon, right? Maybe you can do nylon with some additives or things like that. You may turn those additional materials on, and you'll notice that you'll now have the option to decorate on those items. So that's one thing to look at. The other thing to look at, which is probably not where you're having the issue, but um, you can definitely take a look, is under decoration areas. You can also determine which processes are available for for each of the system decoration areas. For example, areas like left and right chest are normally set to only allow embroidery. So if you also want to do screen print left chest and right chest, you can come into decoration areas and turn those on. Um, so that's the other place you would want to check. So definitely a lot of options for you to configure which processes are going to be available on a given product. All right, so we're just about out of time here. I'm going to try and get through the last questions here. Um, yeah, so I think that that follow-up from Alberto is that same question. Um, okay, yeah, that looks actually like that's the all the questions for today. We do have Marco joining us in. Marco, we're just about ready to end the session, but this will be recorded and posted on our YouTube page, so you can kind of come back and review the questions that we answered. A lot of questions came in today. Glad to see everyone spending time on the DecoNetwork system and getting it ready for some production. Um, like I mentioned at the top, I did have some topics that I wanted to cover, but perhaps we'll get to those on the next session. Just to give you a preview of some of the things that I'm kind of looking to cover. Again, right now with maybe some businesses kind of having reduced production and orders coming in, it would be a good time to kind of focus on optimizing the the Deco Network side of things, the website, making sure it's you're doing your best to market the site and get customers onto it. So we'll take a look at some things like SEO. What can you do in DecoNetwork as far as SEO? The layout of the website a bit. We'll take a look at um, just some basic good practices for the website. I also want to take a look at product availability. Um, determining which products are going to be available on your site versus in your business hub. So those are some good kind of areas to be working on right now if you have some kind of downtime to really optimize your Deco network system and get it working the best as possible and really working for you. All right, so I want to say again, thanks everyone for joining in today. Uh, love the questions. Glad we were able to help. Join us next week. I think at this same time we'll be back on live here on YouTube, answering questions and hopefully looking at some of those topics to help everyone out. Um, and yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Stay safe and take care, guys.